Good morning. Welcome to Monday morning, which has to mean a brand new interview from the Fearless Entrepreneurs interview series. Yay! And I'm absolutely delighted that we're going to be talking about a topic which is very dear to my heart, which I definitely felt some resistance to getting closer to the content and understanding it. But once I did, everything really massively changed for me. And that's what I wanted to bring to you today. So I'm just going to kind of talk for a little bit. I know it takes a little while for Facebook to show us all your gorgeous people that are arriving. But as you come in, I would love for you to come say hi. As always, this is a very engaged, interactive session. This isn't just Alison and I having a chat. This is an opportunity for you to come and engage with us as well. So please come and say hi, come and share your comments, and we've got a lot to share with you today. Apologies for coming a little bit later than planned. I managed to mess the technology up. So that's what happens when you're trying to get the kids out the door and doing a million other things at the same time. I should have just been focusing on one thing, and that was to take the children to school. So we are here, and it's really interesting because as I was sat getting myself ready for this interview and really thinking about the content and going into my Facebook group to talk about this, I kind of felt slightly apologetic about bringing a topic to female entrepreneurs, talking about your period. And I don't know, we'll talk to Alison in a little while, and I'm sure she's definitely felt some resistance from women about this. But, you know, here we are, a group of female entrepreneurs doing business our way. And if you've been following me for a little while, you'll know that for me, it's all about stepping into your desires, using your intuition, being in flow. And this, what we're going to talk about today, is just an extension of that, about how you can use everything about who you are as a woman in your business. And I got a little bit cross with myself for being so apologetic for talking about your periods on Monday. I was like, hang on a minute, we're all women here, and the way that we do business is completely different to how men do business. And having your period and having a cycle is just an element of that, it's an extension of that. And that's why I invited Alison to come along and actually share this content, because I understand from my own learnings with working with Alison as her client how important this is for us to understand it. But equally, I've shared it with my friends, like when they've been like having a moment where they've been really cross, and I've just asked them a really simple question of, you know, where are you in your cycle? And then everything becomes clear, and you can see that the clarity for them about their cycle and why they feel different things at different times is really, really enlightening. And this is exactly why I've invited Alison to come along today. And, you know, this entire series of interviews is me opening the door into my world for you to come and meet all of the women who inspire me and who've got topics that are not my area of expertise, but I tap into and I benefit from. And, you know, this is all about creating content that is like bullshit free and actually helps you as a female entrepreneur. So Jenny is here. So Jenny Harvey's here. Welcome. Lovely to see you here, Jenny. So we are here today to talk about how you can harness your menstrual cycle in your business. And this is about you working powerfully in your business. It's about you working in flow, and it's about, you know, you understanding how you can use what we've got in a really, really powerful way. So that was kind of my little kind of realization this morning when I was actually preparing for this interview about actually this is a really important topic. And if you're feeling any resistance to getting engaged with this content, you definitely need to hear it. So as you pop in, come and say hi. I really would like for you to get engaged with this and for you to have this opportunity to come and ask Alison questions as well. But let me introduce you to Alison. So Alison came into my life a while ago now, and we do this lovely kind of like, she works with me and I work with her, and it's like this mutually brilliant relationship where I gain a lot from working with Alison, and she comes and blossoms and blooms in her business and creates the most amazing opportunities. But let me tell you something about Alison, is that she is no ordinary yoga teacher. She is an absolutely exceptional person who not only is a yoga teacher, but she's also a mentor for women. And, the work that I do with Alison is very, very powerful. And she's been running her own business for about 10 years. So she's got a lot of business background. She runs a very successful business. And about 5 years ago, she decided that she wanted to kind of explore womb yoga. And she's been working with a couple of experts in the field as well, who are experts in this type of work. And one of them being Uma, I'm going to hopefully pronounce her name properly, but it's Uma Dinsworth Tooley, and more recently, Alexandra Pope as well. So I'm just going to, let's just get into this content, and let me welcome Alison into the interview. So Alison, thank you so much for being here today and putting up with my technology problems. You're very welcome to be here today.
Well, I was as bad. I couldn't log on to it, could I, when the time came?
Well, thank you for coming and sharing this topic. And just in my introduction, I was kind of sharing the resistance that I have felt in the past to coming and talking and thinking about my period. And that's definitely come from a place of me thinking that my cycle was something that just had to be kind of battled through. So do you come across this sort of feeling from women a lot, Alison, this resistance to actually looking at, your cycle and understanding it more?
Yeah, and that's really, I guess, what it's all about. So we're not necessarily kind of raised with a particularly positive outlook on our cycles. It's something to be a bit embarrassed about. It's something that you don't talk about. And if someone's in a bad mood, that joke, oh, she's got her period or she's premenstrual. And it's kind of, it's been pushed into the background, and it's suppressed and it's belittled, and women don't really talk about it very much. And it was interesting what you said about how men and women operate very differently in business. But what actually happens in practice is that women are kind of expected to behave like men. And I think a lot of people have had that experience when, I know a lot of us that are running our own businesses have been out in the corporate world and felt that, you have to be on a level all the time. So, you need to be high energy, high impact, available, glossy, organised. And women's energy just isn't like that. It's cyclical, it ebbs and flows. And it can be very, very difficult for women to flourish in that environment, assuming that they are in a natural menstrual cycle. And of course, then what happens is that we sort of pathologise some of the things that come up and say, well, we can even out your mood. We can stop you from having cramps. We can stop you from being so tired. Once a month, we can stop you from wanting to kill people by giving you a pill. Take this pill and you will be on that nice even keel that allows you to operate in a society that just doesn't recognise this stuff.
And that accepts you only when you're on that even keel, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think Alison and I have definitely set the scene for why this is so important. So in the comments, if you want to come in and share anything, if you've got any kind of questions or anything that's kind of coming up as our has, come and share those with us. But let's go right back to the beginning, because you have been in business for 10 years now, Alison. Mm-hmm. So why did you become a yoga teacher? Because that definitely wasn't your background, and it wasn't going to be your path either, was it?
No, it was not. So I did my degree in human resources management, and I had a career in that for a good decade before I had my first child. And it served me very well for those 10 years. I enjoyed it. I had some good and interesting and varied work. But a few things kind of came together. I think I'd kind of reached the point where I didn't feel like I was having a huge amount of impact in the way that I wanted to have in the world, I guess, in that type of role. I'd had a baby, and I didn't really want to go back to what I was doing before because I wanted to be more available to my family. And then a really big thing, actually, that I haven't talked about much was that before I had my first baby, I retired from work and I went to his retirement party. And he had a huge impact in his field, in quite a niche field, but a huge impact. And I sat there and I thought, if I carry on doing what I'm doing, nobody's going to be saying this stuff about me when I retire. And all of those things kind of came together. I thought, I need to change. And so I was already practicing yoga. I was training to teach yoga, but more for my own interest, I guess. I had the idea that I might do 1 or 2 classes a week for friends or colleagues, just kind of for the pleasure of it. And actually, when I looked at going back to work after I had to go, I thought, well, actually, I could do this instead. So that was kind of how it came about. I think I wanted to share the benefits of yoga with more people, and to have the option of having a career that fitted in better with my life where it was at that stage.
And isn't it interesting? I think every woman so far that I've interviewed, it has the reason, the time that they've kind of had this realization that they want to live and work differently is generally when they've been at a crossroads. And for me, that's definitely having my first child. It was for yourself, but there was already in your mind the idea that actually you wanted to stand for something else, which is really interesting. And what an impact you are having. So there you were 10 years ago, set up as a yoga teacher, and then kind of 5 years ago you decided that actually what you really wanted to explore further was the kind of work around women's wombs. So, what was the kind of catalyst behind looking at that work in particular?
Well, I'd been teaching yoga for pregnancy because that followed on quite nicely, obviously, from being pregnant myself and attending those classes and having a baby. So that was the sorts of people I was around. That was the sort of stuff I was interested in. But I got very interested through my pregnancy. It was probably my first kind of experience, actually, of really thinking about myself as a woman, having spent 10 years trying to kind of thrive in this male-dominated career environment, and I got really interested in women's rights around childbirth as well, and we teach a lot about that during our classes, and it really made me start to think about things, about a broader context of things in a really different way. So I've been teaching pregnancy yoga, getting kind of involved in all of that side of things. And I there was the opportunity to go and attend a weekend course with Uma, who Rachel mentioned. I owned Uma's book. She was quite well known. I'd heard of her. And it was not too far away. So I thought, yeah, I'll go along. I'll maybe pick up a few ideas how I can do something a bit different with my pregnancy yoga, get a bit of kind of a refresh. And I really got a lot more than I bargained for, because that was when she introduced me to this idea of cycles and how to work with them. And it made so many things just fall into place for me. There were things happening personally at the time. So I'd had my second baby by this time. And they want you to sort your contraception out, don't they, when you leave the hospital, and you're laughing at them and going, I'm never doing that again. So I'd had a contraceptive injection that was long acting, because someone somewhere had managed to persuade me that it was a really, the last thing I wanted was another baby, and I didn't want another baby at that stage, and this was the best way to deal with it. But it had actually, I think, with hindsight, it had flattened me out, and I didn't enjoy being on that level. So when we're in the natural flow of menstrual cycle, we have a built-in monthly rest, where we withdraw, and we sort of hunker down and take care of ourselves. And I missed that. And I kind of missed it consciously and emotionally, but I missed it energetically on some kind of, subconscious level as well. And I felt absolutely exhausted. And when I came away from that weekend, I really wanted to get that out of my system, and get into feeling the flow, because I suddenly had been introduced to all these sort of positive aspects of something that I really just felt I needed to get rid of. I didn't need to bleed, I didn't need to have pain, I didn't need to have mood swings. I could, and I didn't need to have perhaps an unwanted pregnancy at a stage where I just had a new baby. But actually, those things were so small compared to the sort of huge benefits of really tapping into that. So that really kind of excited me. about the whole thing. And yeah, it
Yeah,
was really life changing for me at that point, actually. Really life.
And then the work that you've gone and done after that, as a result of that, with the women that that work with us. I mean, Jenny's one of the women that comes and works with you, as I am, and it is life changing, because you begin to realise that instead of this thing being a hindrance and something that we shouldn't talk about, it's actually very, very powerful. So let's get into that, Alison, because I think we've been teasing the audience enough. So what would be absolutely fantastic if you could kind of describe from your perspective how, as a business owner, as a female business owner, how we can harness our cycles in a way that really benefits our lives and our businesses.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of it is about kind of self-awareness at the different stages. So Uma introduced me to Alexandra Pope, and I went and did quite a lot of work with Alexandra, and she is the menstrual cycle guru. And she has some lovely ways of helping us to understand the cycle. And I've really connected with the idea of seasons. And I teach yoga is often taught quite sort of seasonally anyway. So we think about what the season of the year is, but we can also think about our inner season. So day one of our cycle, bleeding day, first day of bleeding, is the onset of the winter phase of the cycle. And if you think about the energy of winter, wrapping yourself up in your blanket, it's your hygge stuff, isn't it? Light your candles, get your blanket out, and you're feeling quite withdrawn. So another thing that Alexandra says that I quite like is that in the winter season, the inner lights are bright and the outer lights are dimmed. So you are inner focused, you're focused on yourself at that point. And then as you emerge from that, you come into your spring, your inner spring. And it's quite kind of playful and exploratory in that phase. It's possibilities, new growth, new life, new ideas. And then from there, you move into your summer. Ovulation is your kind of high summer. So onset of bleeding, winter solstice, ovulation, summer solstice. And those are observable if you know what you're doing points in the cycle. We can definitely say that something has happened at those points, and at the other points we're in transit. And then from our summer we start to come down, and we come down into our autumn. And this can be the phase that a lot of women really struggle with. So it's kind of like all the wheels have come off. It was all going fine. We've had a nice playful spring. We've had a lovely energetic summer. Summer is the time really when we are how society would like us to be. We're available. We've got tons of energy. We can be everything to everybody for about a week. And then, the wheels fall off. We can't do it anymore. We've got spots, our hair's greasy. We're in a terrible mood. All the things that we were able to tolerate quite cheerfully for the first couple of weeks, we cannot put up with those anymore. And we can have a real kind of sense of, the outer world is a distraction. We don't want to deal with it, and we want to come back into ourselves. And then it's usually with some relief that we come into the winter again at the end of that cycle. So if we know what we're doing and we've got our finger on the pulse with that, we can really use all of that to our advantage. And obviously you can't always, people go, very nice, but I can't change, when things happen. And you can't, but you can approach the things that you have to do from the energy that you're in at the time. So there might be certain things that you really know that you do need to avoid doing at certain points, or if you do have to do them, that you need to be very careful at those points. And it's worth thinking around your kind of late autumn into winter about really kind of stripping back your diary. You don't want too much in at that point. If you want to play around with new ideas, your springtime is a good time for that. It's not a good time to pin things down, so you probably don't want to make any decisions at that point. But you can kind of translate that kind of out of a direct menstrual cycle as well. So, some women who are watching might not be in a cycle. They might have crossed their menopause, they might be pregnant, they might be lactating, but, there might be any, and I'm not here to tell people to stop taking their contraceptives either, if all of that's going on. You can still connect to kind of cycle wisdom in other ways, and recognise that there's a time for all of these things. So when you're working in your business, there is a time to get creative and actually not feel that you have to pin yourself down to actions. When you're in your summer, when you're feeling really high energy, that is the time to really get things done really make the most of that. But then particularly always recognising that there is a second half to the cycle. And if we fail to recognise that, whether we are in a natural flow of menstrual cycle or not, we can burn ourselves out and get exhausted. So we do need to have time to reflect. We do need to have time to rest. And the other thing, you know, you'll start to notice if you start charting all the things that happen for you in particular points, but that kind of autumn phase, which may be your menstrual cycle, or you may just hit a kind of life autumn, can be really full of self-doubt and self-criticism. And this is where I go to Rachel pretty much every month and say, I'm not doing this anymore. This business is crap that I've been running for 10 years and is actually quite successful. You know, I'm hopeless at this. Nobody wants this. Everybody wants that that's over there. I'm jacking it in. I'm going to go and do something else. Unfortunately, with Rachel's understanding of cycle wisdom, and also because, you know, when we as women communicate with each other about our own cycles, we can understand each other better. She's learned just to kind of nod and smile and say, okay. And she knows that, you know, within a week, I'll be kind of through that. So yeah, it's interesting to sort of observe what happens.
For me, though, Alison, it was so enlightening to understand this cycle and to understand when is a good time to actually do certain things in your cycle. So, like you said, you know, like the springtime, which I'm just entering, it's like, oh my God, I'm full of so many amazing, brilliant ideas. And I really feel as if I am like, you know, a bull pushing through the soil, that I'm like reaching for the sunlight. Then the summer will be, you know, that's the kind of time when I'll be really in the doing, really doing, being in flow, really being very, as you said, energetic, but being very mindful that as I tip into autumn, winter, that kind of belief in myself can just go from like here right down. And when you have that awareness of your cycle, it really can be just that moment of realization of this is where I am right now. And that in itself is so amazingly powerful. And you just think, yeah, of course, that's how I'm feeling. That, yes, this is what's happening right now. And people
again,
yeah. And you know that you're going to like go into this slumber and then you're going to come up again. And this is the nugget of what I really wanted people to capture from this interview, is the power of your cycle. It, you know, like I said before, it really was something that I was taught to battle through, kind of ignore really, and it was a total hindrance. But for me, this is about harnessing what happens naturally within us and using this not just in our businesses but in life as well. So for the guys who are here who've been listening to the content, you know, how much is this, you know, really kind of waking you up to understanding how you can use this cycle in a completely different way than you've perhaps been using or understanding your cycle. So come and share that with us. I'd love to know. So Alison, for you then, as a female business owner, in terms of this kind of cycle, how much, you know, how much do you actually bring this into your business? How much awareness do you have? Is it complete awareness, or do you still have those moments where you go, oh, what's going on?
Oh, of course I do. Yeah. No, we've never got it completely sorted, have we? But yeah, I mean, you know, sometimes I'll kind of do something. I'll be like, yeah, that's because of where I am in my cycle. That doesn't mean, of course, that we should dismiss it either. And this is a really important point. So particularly when we're looking at second half of the cycle, autumn and winter, the real positive in that phase is your capacity to connect with other people. So you are vulnerable and open, and that allows you the possibility for connection. It's not a good time to put yourself in a very vulnerable situation. So you don't want to get into like bullish negotiations and things at that stage. But for me, for example, teaching pregnancy yoga, teaching postnatal yoga, I can feel a much deeper connection with the people I'm working with at that time. Because it's bad actually. Teaching pregnancy yoga when you're ovulating isn't particularly good. It can be a bit kind of disconnected and a bit weird. So there's that kind of aspect to it as well. And then there's also that, you know, a lot of truth comes out in your autumn phase. So, you know, not to say I should just ignore how I feel because I'm just premenstrual. Actually, you should really pay attention to how you feel then. And if there's conflict with other people that keeps coming up at that point, you need to address it throughout the month. So, the classic is husband, isn't it? Husband's socks on the bedroom floor are fine for the first 14 days of the cycle. Husband's socks on the bedroom floor are not fine in autumn. So you could speak to the husband about picking up his socks when you're in spring, and you're not likely to, shout at him and cause an argument. So anything that's coming up regularly needs to be addressed right the way around. Of course, we forget, and we're not always totally self-aware and self-conscious of what we're doing. So if I wouldn't turn up every month without threatening to jack in my business. I remember.
One of the things for me, when I'm looking at my monthly planner, I do think, all right, okay, I'm going to launch something here. And I always have to do that whole where will I be in my cycle? Because if I'm in autumn, I'm going to have, I'm going to have to be doubling up on my mindset work because I'm going to have doubt. And if I'm in my winter, well, I just want to rest more. And as you said, disconnect a little bit. So, it's kind of like looking at those first 14 days of a new cycle and going, this is when it is a good time for me to be engaged and high visibility and high connection. So it always comes into play now when I'm actually planning out my activities. So that's how I use it in my business.
Yeah. You need to be careful not to burn yourself out, though. It's easy to do too much in summer, and then autumn comes as a nasty shock.
Yeah, definitely. It's that kind of always, isn't it? Is trying to be kind of graceful in it. The other thing about the truth telling is for me, that's a really good time in the autumn time. When you're naturally just speaking your truth and you're thinking, oh my goodness me, I can't believe I've actually spoken to somebody in that way. But for me, when I'm starting to think about my content, and a lot of the content for me is about speaking the truth to female entrepreneurs and really having some, kind of key messages for them to understand that they're hiding their true value and their true skills under a blanket of fear. So sometimes for me, I can really map out some great content in autumn and then look at creating it later on when I've got a more reasonable approach to life. And I can actually use that kind of almost like those little nuggets of truth telling that, that I really feel that my audience needs to hear, but then kind of look at creating that content later on and just really having those powerful messages. So, you can use it in creating things and launching things and selling things. This stuff is honestly, this is so important for us all to understand.
Yeah, definitely. And I find that I've got a sort of day 18 thing where my truth has to be heard, and there'll be some big political rant on my Facebook page or something like that, and it's huge. It's almost like you're channeling something at that point. You get Alexandra says, you get the download, and your message, and it's kind of you're refining month by month what you were here to do, what have you been put on the earth to do, and there'll be different points where it comes through, but I think it can come through with great clarity because the idea is that you are more open to kind of other stuff at that stage. When you're regulating, you're in your own world and you're not very kind of porous. You're taking it all in a lot more. And then, of course, if there might be ladies watching who are sort of perimenopausal or across the menopause, the idea is, I'm not quite there yet myself, but with the cycle, you refine a lot of stuff. So when you hit menopause, you kind of understand what's going on a little bit better. But when you get to menopause, it's like a kind of a big pre-menstrual phase thing where you are really refining your message, and your bullshit tolerance is at zero, and you see people getting really clear, this, not that. There's an awful lot of not that, no, I'm not doing that anymore, I'm not having anything to do with that, this is what I'm here to do. And there's a real kind of urgency about it. And you see people, they're just not taking it anymore. My mum's like this now. She's like, no, I'm not having it.
It's really interesting you should say that, Alison, because there are a couple of ladies in my mastermind group that I'm part of as a client, and they're definitely at that age, and their businesses are absolutely flying because they've got total clarity and they've got that power of their voice and their message. And it's like, as soon as you said that, I had these women in mind. I was like, oh my God, no wonder their businesses are off the scale.
And then there you are, when you've got this understanding. You know, I'm looking forward to my menopause. It's not an easy process to go through, but there's a real kind of burning away of the stuff that just doesn't matter anymore, and a real kind of stepping into your full power at that point. And I think, again, you know, menopause, even more so than menstruation, we've been led to believe it's negative.
Wow. Carol's totally resonating with this, Alison. She's saying that she's having a very severe menopause and she's found it really sorts out all her priorities. How exciting!
Yeah. So, you know, I think it is, and I don't think it's easy. You know, it's not to say that it's pleasant to go through, but there's tremendous power in it. Tremendous power.
And again, with menopause,
we pack those women up, don't we? You know, we put them away. How many postmenopausal women are there in the public eye?
Well, we never talk about it though. So thank you so much, Carol, for sharing this. She's also shared that she's noticed that there are more cycles of energy flow throughout the day. So it's like we all dread the menopause and think it's all about us losing our husbands, growing hair in places that we don't want and all the rest of it. But actually it sounds as though there's a real positive side to it. And I think, you know, the work that Alison's doing and the work that other women like Alison are doing it's about the re-education of like smart women on understanding that actually this is good. It's not bad. It's good. Just because we're different from men doesn't mean that it's wrong. Oh, juicy stuff, Alison. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing this content. I knew it was going to be amazing. So, Alison, for people who are like, yes, they want to know more about this, how can people stay connected to you? What's the best way for them to do that?
There's a few options. So I've got a Facebook page, Yoga with Alison, that perhaps can we post a link underneath the video when it goes into the group. That's not a bad way to keep in touch. I've got a website, which is www.centered-yoga.co.uk, and you can sign up there for newsletters. I'm a bit intermittent with newsletters because that's a bit cyclical as well, isn't it? Sometimes we like doing the newsletters, sometimes we don't. But between the Facebook page and newsletters, you can usually find out most things. And in February, I'm just firming things up. I'm going to be doing a day workshop on cycle awareness, where you can come and go a little bit more in depth into this and get an introduction to how to start charting your cycle and what sorts of things to look out for as you're doing that. And it can really help as well. We haven't touched on it. It can really help with healing any problems that you've got with your cycle. So heavy bleeding, irregularity, pain, premenstrual murderous rage, charting and paying attention to your cycle can really help. You know, those things are not, when they're to their extremes, they're not normal. So learning to track your cycle, I think, is really fundamental for your wellness.
And the health of the whole self, isn't it? It's not just you as a person, it's like everything that you come into connection with as well.
Yeah.
Oh, so, Alison, I know a ton of people would be interested in that day.
Cool.
Oh, it's been amazing. Thank you so much, Alison, for coming and sharing this. It's like, you know, Carol's like totally given me some juice about the next stage of our lives as well. So it's been really fascinating.
Cool. Okay. Thank you, Rachel. Thanks for having me.
Thank
nice
you.
Nice to start Monday.
Yeah, isn't it great to just start with this high vibe of talk about, you know, the thing that you're an expert in, and sometimes we kind of forget, don't we, what we do know and what other people don't know yet. So thank you for coming and sharing that. Do check Alison out. She is absolutely awesome. Thank you to everybody who's joined us today and everybody who watches the recording. You know, keep on sharing your comments. Come and connect with Alison and I. We both hang out in Live Your Abundant Life, my free Facebook community. So you can keep asking your questions or sharing things that are coming up for you after you've heard this as well. So I know that you've got a lot from that. And yeah, join me next Monday when I'll be interviewing another Fearless Entrepreneur. Have a very fabulous week, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye.